Hello, my name is Ozlem, and this is the coaching program sponsored by Sparkus, a coaching tech company that optimizes coaching and mentoring solutions for cultural transformation, talent, and leadership development within organizations. Welcome to the show. Hello, coaching passionates around the globe. Welcome. You're listening to the coaching program, the show that brings you tips and tricks of designing and implementing successful coaching programs within your organization. I'm your host, Ozlem, a professional coach and co-founder of Sparkus digital coaching platform, which scales meaningful coaching experiences to larger audiences within organizations. In this episode, my guest today is Hedy Heijting, Facilitator of Transformation at ABN Amro Bank. She's a professional coach, and also she has tons of experience in other business areas of the banking industry. So welcome, Hedy. It's very nice to have you here. I already made a very short intro, but can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, thanks for having me, Ozlem. Yeah, well, my name is Hedy Heijting, and I, as you said, work within the bank as a facilitator of transformation. And I can imagine that is not self-explanatory. Mm-hmm. So what are we doing? We sort of help the leaders of the bank in the transformation the bank is going through. So we were founded sort of about 3 years ago. And the bank was in, and still is in the process of transforming itself, coming from a new purpose, banking for generations to come. Mm-hmm. And we also had a new strategy at that moment, and of course that evolves over and over again. And you can have nice strategy, beautiful strategies and ideas, but if the culture of the bank doesn't fit with that strategy and where the bank would like to go to, then I think you may know the proverb, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So what we are doing is connecting the culture to the strategy and the purpose of the bank, and we help leaders because that is also having an impact on leadership, and that's where we come in. So we help leaders in evolving into a culture. Mm-hmm. And people in the bank make the culture, of course. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and we help the leaders in their path and in our path as we're all part of the bank towards the culture we would like to have and that fits the strategy and the purpose. So that's what we do.
Lovely. So by transformation, we mean a cultural transformation going on.
Yes.
In the organization. Yes. Yeah, lovely. Yeah, because transformation is used in many different areas like digital transformation, etc. But we're now specifically talking about the change of the culture to fit the new strategy, as far as I understand.
Okay. Yes, that's what we are for. Okay, that's our job.
Perfect. Yeah. And how does coaching fit into that picture?
Coaching is one of the elements of our work. Mm-hmm. What we do, we enroll cultural programs, mm-hmm. and we facilitate the leaders and their teams. Mm-hmm. And in our scope, those teams are also leaders. Mm-hmm. And so we do also team dynamics, but it's sort of always in the light of what we want to do as a bank as a whole. So where we want to go to. So we do team dynamics as well, cultural mm-hmm. programs, and individual coaching of the leaders is also an option. So it's not the main part, the individual coaching one, mm-hmm. But it's an option, and sometimes it's also something sort of spin-off of the work what we do, because we connect with the leaders.
Yeah. And, so that's an important note to make, I believe, because when organizations are thinking about coaching, sometimes they think about just development of an individual in the organization, or like there is this team needing some support, so they think about that team. So there's team coaching, but running a company-wide program to cover not only like individuals one-on-one, but having all those facilitation and team coaching for a larger purpose of cultural transformation is sometimes a little bit not in the focus. And what I'm hearing you say now is like the main focus is the cultural transformation, and actually coaching is kind of a support to that process. It's not the other way around, because some organizations think, oh, I'm going to coach this leader, I'm going to coach this team, and the culture would automatically change. But it's sometimes not that easy to go one by one, but better to go on a systemic level, and then if needed go deeper into each individual and each team.
Yeah, we strongly believe in that it's all connected to each other. So strategy is not something that stands on its own. The purpose isn't either, and culture isn't as well. So it's all interconnected. So we always like to sort of make the infinity sign, where the purpose is in the middle, and on one side you have the culture, and on the other side is strategy. And we like to say that the line of the infinity sign, that's the leadership. So leaders have to focus not only on one side or on the other, but it's all interconnected. And so that's what we strongly believe in.
Yeah, beautiful model. It just is so obvious, and also very much like how the leadership and leaders are the more fluid in that process from the culture to strategy to purpose. So it's beautiful metaphor, really beautiful model as far as I understand. Yeah. And is the coaching used in different areas of the organization as well? So is it only the cultural transformation piece, or are there any other initiatives around it?
No, our scope is on a certain level of leadership, but within the bank there are on multiple levels you can find coaching, and so we have a lot of initiatives. If you see it from the perspective of personal development. Then we have a lot of programs like trainee programs, leadership programs, mentoring programs, all those things we do have in the bank, and coaching is always an element of that. So it's not only coaching, but it's certainly an element of that. And we also have an internal coach network. And that's for all employees that have a coach question. If they would like to, they can contact one of the coaches, and then they have their separate coaching traject. So that's also what we have. So we have programs with coaching elements. We have a coach network, and but not a coaching only program. Throughout the bank. Okay. So it's always a part of, either it's like somebody needs it and ad hoc goes to a coach, and it is like a possibility for. Is it a possibility for all employees, or is it provided to certain levels? No, it's a possibility for all employees, especially the internal coaching network, because that's sort of from employees for employees, because all the coaches in that network, they are certified coaches, but don't have that as their job. They have a job within the bank, and they are available for coaching questions. So that's one. And we do also work with some external parties for coaching, and that might be on several levels available.
Okay, and you also mentioned that there is the other, like there is no typical, this is the coaching program, the only coaching program in the organization type of thing. Like the whole focus is coaching, at least there is none so far. But I understand for the cultural transformation, you mentioned that coaching is an element, and there are also other elements to it. And what are those elements specifically? Like, is it is there trainings involved in it, or is it like workshops? So, what are some tools that an organization can use for transformational, for their cultural transformation, you believe?
That's a nice question. What we do is, for me and the team I'm working in, we are connected with several business lines. So for instance, I work for the private banking and for the commercial banking and the audit department. And why are we doing that? I'm doing that with 2 or 3 other colleagues of mine, and other colleagues are focusing. So we have sort of focus areas within the bank, and we do that because that makes it possible for us to really understand what that business line is doing, on what the strategy of that business line is, translated from the bank strategy, and to really connect and understand what's going on and what are the dynamics in that business line. And from there we can translate that, or we translate that to, okay, what does that mean then for leadership and for culture in that particular area. So we run overall cultural programs to sort of measure also what's the culture of ABN Amro, and what would we like to be, where are we going to, what is desired culture. We did that some years ago, and from there we can sort of deep dive it into interventions. And okay, so if this is the current culture, and we know what culture we would like to evolve to, what can we do then to help the culture evolve, to make steps in the culture.
Beautiful, yeah. And that, brings to my mind, I always have this question, like, when do you have internal coaching? When do you have external coaches? So I think this is one of the areas where having internal, not only coaches, but maybe generally saying facilitators would fit really well in your case, like really understanding, going with a certain business line in the organization to understand their world in depth. I think the fact that you are in-house, your internal coaches, I think accelerates the impact you have. But what do you say? Like, when would you include internal and external?
Well, I think for the work that I am doing at the moment, I think it's very strong that I also are part of this bank. Yeah. Of course, I'm also part of the system, so that's where you should be very alert.
Yeah, sure.
But I think it works. It works because I think it's strong because we are making, as a bank, use of the talent and the capacities of a lot of people working for the bank. That's also how we were founded as a department. So I think that's I really like that. That our exco said several years ago, so let's also use the talents within the bank and not only work with consultants or coaching companies outside. Also because, like you said, we know, we understand the dynamics, and we really know, and the knowledge of the work we do is not lost at the end of the consultants come and go, and they take their knowledge with them.
Yeah.
So I think it works on several layers or several angles. But I also think that, as what I said, I am part of the system. So it doesn't necessarily work in every case. And that's also why we also work with external parties for coaching. And maybe also that's the reason why the individual coaching for the layers within the bank I work for, so that those are more the top layers. I understand that there might be a preference on certain levels not to have a coach from within the organization. Yeah. But it's better to have than an executive coach from outside the organization.
Yeah.
So I think that those are also the questions you should ask yourself as an organization. So when can you work with internal coaches and when not?
Yeah, yeah. And also, yeah, now what that you're saying, it's not only the contents of the, the conversation, like do we need internal people or not, but you also mentioned the, the coachee, who is the person to be coached, is also very much linked to that conversation. The higher people get in the hierarchy, of course, it's harder to find internal people to support them. Without that hierarchical dynamics, probably, or also maybe sometimes bring in a different perspective, an outside perspective, is also very important. Yeah, I definitely
Yeah, I
agree with
think
you.
both in both situations you have pros and cons.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think from my experience, for organizations who really aim for having a coaching culture, generally it's not just one type of support. There are different possibilities. You also mentioned mentors, for instance. So like all those internal coaches, mentors, external coaches, leaders coaching people. So it's kind of a combination of all those, together with integrating coaching into your other practices. Like in your case, it's the cultural transformation. So it's not just one size fits all solution, I believe. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But we do what we just started is thinking about a vision on coaching
Ah.
within the bank, without having wanting to develop a program or so. But well, we started to think about what is the vision on coaching, because we are a big company and there's a lot going on.
Sure.
So that was sort of neat to start thinking about this vision.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that's now, well, in progress at the moment.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the outcome will be.
Sure.
We'll see, but I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, just having a larger vision about coaching. What do we want to do? And maybe I can also ask, like, hearing that there are all these different elements that you're benefiting from. You can think about this in terms of the cultural transformation, but also for other coaching practices within the bank. How do you track progress? You already mentioned something about measurement. So how do you measure? How do you track?
Yeah, for the cultural transformation, we used an external method. And you can then measure the culture based on values.
Okay.
Because we also want to be a values-led organization. So then it's nice to know what are the current values that are recognized by the employees within the organization, and what values do we think are necessary to reach our goals, as in strategy and making steps towards our purpose. So that's something that you can, if you repeat it after you've done some initiatives and interventions, you can, after a year or so, you can do the same survey, and then that's a method to measure culture. And it's interesting, one of the reasons why we are now thinking of a vision is that we also would like to measure the effectivity of coaching a little bit more.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons. So as it comes to measuring, I'm not sure, because we don't have, that's another reason for this vision, is where does coaching take place, with whom do we know it? Because a lot of people know somebody who's a good coach, and then sort of introduces that coach to a person without the normal processes, the HR processes, following those processes. You can also follow the HR process, and then you internal coach network. So we have a lot, and we don't necessarily measure effectivity or quality aligned with price. How does that match?
Yeah.
So those are all reasons for this.
Yeah, that actually brings
for this
me to another question that I had in mind. Like, so since you mentioned that we don't know what's happening where, how do we track? So that brings me to my other question about, like, do you somehow use technology in this process, or are you planning to? Yeah.
Well, we for all employees, we have a platform. We have a learning platform And in that platform, you can register and assign yourself to a lot of courses and things. So it's in the broader way of learning.
Yeah.
And just last week, we had a relaunch of this platform, and we, as a first step, we incorporated the internal coach network in that platform. So we now have it. It's working with several tiles, and there's now one tile that's called "Are you looking for a coach?" If you click on it, you get to see all the internal coaches.
Lovely.
So that's one step. And I think that I foresee that we will incorporate all the coaching activities maybe in that platform.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you would have the notion of more like who's really having a coaching and who's not. Yeah.
Yes, and it's not for controlling purposes,
No, sure.
but it's also to know what coaches are working for the bank.
Sure.
What is the pricing, the quality? How are they perceived? I'm now thinking out loud what it might be, because it's in progress, and it's also one of the reasons was also to sort of be more regularly maybe in contact with the coaching pool, the final coaching pool, to and that's twofold. On the one hand, to keep them along if they are external coaches, of course. Also take them along in the developments within the organization, so they understand in what dynamics the coachee is working.
Sure.
And on the other hand, also be nice to sometimes anonymously. That. Anonymously, yes, that's the. So it might be also nice to get some feedback.
Yeah.
On maybe pull out some red threads from what what they are coaching on, topics they are coaching on, to maybe if they are important to know for the organization, we can take that along in other initiatives.
Yes.
So, exactly. And of course that's done anonymously.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, just to have that coaching confidentiality. But I also believe that, say, once you're introducing coaching to masses in organizations, there is also a lot of useful data, not taking away the coaching confidentiality, but if those are where you have very transparent, open communications. So if there are certain, like you said, red flags that we can see as the HR or organizational transformation people, then, like you said, then it's possible to have some other initiatives, change initiatives, or learning and development initiatives. There is a lot of hidden treasure in the coaching process.
Yes,
that's what I believe.
Or things that's important to know around all the culture.
Exactly.
So what might initiatives be on the cultural side of where can we help it?
Yeah, how can we help it? Yeah, where do we help it? How can we help it? Definitely. And do you see, I mean, thinking that this is a really big organization, I assume are there some kind of special dynamics, challenges within the organization while implementing all these programs that, somebody who is listening to us, maybe to, introduce such an initiative in their organization, that should be aware of or think about, like any tips around those kind of dynamics and challenges?
Yeah, well, we are of course still in the progress of making this vision, so not in the implementation phase yet. But I can imagine that that there might be some dynamics or challenges that we can encounter, such as as it comes to measurement and the coach pools, internal and external, might not be used. To them maybe asking about some things they hear a lot that are important for us to know. So that might be a change in working together. But I also can imagine is that as we would like to have more vision on what coaches we would like to work with, there are, of course, at the moment, people working with coaches that are not coming from the preferred companies.
Ah.
So it might be that those people might have preferences for some coaches.
Sure.
It might also be that there are some coaches now on the coach list or preferred parties that we are working with that might not meet totally or partly the quality and what we stand for. So that's all about in the. If you are used to something and you know something, it's also about letting go and being open for a change as well. So I think that might be some dynamics that we can encounter during this whole process.
Yeah, as someone who's been working a lot with transformation, I think you already know a lot about letting go and just getting used to something new. That's why, you obviously have that experience. Anything else that I forgot to ask, or you want me to ask you, or anything else you want to share with the audience?
No, I think we discussed pretty much what I have to share.
Okay, lovely.
With you.
Lovely.
And thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for those valuable contributions, because I think it now brings a larger perspective about how to use coaching, what to do in terms of to overcome those challenges, where to integrate it, where not to integrate it. So having that kind of a larger perspective is very rich, I believe. Not all organizations have that experience or perspective yet. So it's wonderful to hear it from someone who has been through the journey since the last 3 years, basically. Yeah. And now it's very exciting to hear also there is this new vision coming up in the bank. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Hedy, for joining, for sharing
welcome.
your experience. Thank you. So thank you all for joining us on this episode of the coaching program. Make sure to subscribe to the show in iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're having your podcasts. If you found this conversation helpful, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or you can simply tell a friend about the show who might benefit from it. Be sure to tune in for our next episode next week, and let's all create more meaningful coaching experiences for everyone. See you all.